Hey everyone, it's Mojaxx back in the DJ City UK lab, and today we need to have a conversation about levels. Now, the optimistic part of me kind of felt like most working DJs, they understand the basics about, keeping out of the red and distortion and limiters and that kind of thing. But I had an experience playing with some other DJs a couple of weeks back where I realized that's not actually the case, and there are plenty of working, even full-time DJs out there who don't have the first clue about how to manage their levels, and that is, to me, unacceptable. It's your job as a DJ to make sure that you're giving your audience the best sound possible, you're not feeding them distortion and actually damaging their hearing, and you're representing your music in the right way by allowing it to actually to sound as it's intended to sound. So we've got three simple rules. We're not going to go crazy. You don't have to be a sound engineer to be a DJ, but you just need to know the very, very basics. So we're going to go with that. If you know all of this stuff and have known it for years, great, more power to you. I'm glad you do. But please, I bet you've got a buddy who's always running in the reds and stuff. Post this on their Facebook walls. Hey, have you seen this video? And maybe those guys might pick up a bit of a better idea about how to manage their levels. Let's get to it. So the first rule of thumb is keep it out of the red. Distortion is a bad thing, and all these modern mixers now have loads of extra headroom, so you're not going to be clipping or distorting unless you really hammer it. But that's not the point. The sound system you're playing on will be expecting a certain level, and if you go well beyond that, you're either going to hit a limiter, which we'll talk about in number 2, or you're going to cause distortion further down the chain, and you're going to damage the sound system. That is a very real possibility. So keep it out of the reds. Red means no, simple as that. You need to understand the gain structure of each mixer that you're working with. So for example, the Pioneer DJM mixers, the 0 mark on the VU meters on each channel doesn't actually mean 0, it's about -4. So you can comfortably go 3 amber LEDs, that's giving you a really nice hot signal. Signal to noise ratio is absolutely perfect, so you're not getting any of the underlying sort of noise floor of the mixer. You're giving a nice hot signal throughout, but you're not going to be clipping and causing distortion any higher. You can even go up to sort of 4 amber LEDs, but then when you get to that kind of level, you're kind of pushing it. So if you're doing, let's say you've got a filter on there with some resonance, you could easily get into the red by doing that. And so you want to just give yourself a little bit of extra headroom, keep it on the better safe than sorry kind of side of things, especially as well when you think you're mixing multiple sources together. Of course, they're going to create a volume boost. When you've got 2 tracks playing at full volume, that's going to boost the volume. So just give yourself a little bit of headroom. The same applies on the DJMs to the master level as well. That 0 dB isn't really 0, that's -4 or thereabouts. So you can easily go up to just below the reds, and that's a nice hot signal, but you're not exceeding any kind of standards and limits that a sound system will be expecting. So you're keeping it safe like that. A zone mixer from Allen & Heath and the Range 62, for example, work in a slightly different way. With these, this LED meter on here doesn't actually reflect the master output. The master output is basically just an attenuator. You put it onto maximum, and that is putting out 0 as far as the master is concerned. And you can obviously pull it down if you've got too much level coming through. Your aim is to keep this, which is the sum of all the channels, out of the red. So you can comfortably go between -6 and +6. That isn't an issue. I've had a very good sound engineer, one of the best in the world, who's told me when I played on a Zone 92, just keep it just below the reds and that'll be fine, because that's what he's expecting from the system. And it does sound, loads of headroom in there. It's going to sound really good at +6. Just don't go into those reds if you can help it. Keep those levels in check, but understand the mixers that you're playing with and how their gain structure works. Keep it out of the red after that, and you'll be pretty much sorted. Now, the second rule is you need to understand how compressors and limiters work. Every installer worth their salt will at some stage have a limiter and compressor in the system. So you can cane the levels all you like, and all you're going to do is end up with a really squashed sound, and you'll actually end up playing more quietly. This is what has caused me to do this video right now, is that I played with a guy. I was doing the set, I was on a DJM mixer, all the levels were kind of comfortable, sounded nice and loud, no problem at all. And in this venue, they've actually got a big metal box right in front of the DJ's face with LEDs on there saying this is now clipping, this is now being compressed, all lit up. It actually says it on there, you can't miss it. And this guy basically came in, took over from me, turned the channel gains up, all in the red, master level, all in the red. I came back, and actually he was playing at a quieter level than I had been 5 minutes before, and I was keeping the levels in check. And that's what you've just got to understand. So I'm going to show you a bit in Ableton Live, give you an idea of how that works so you can actually see it in action. So this is a software recreation, but it gives you a rough idea of what's going on with compressor limiter hardware. So we've got a nicely set up system here. We're running under 0 quite comfortably. Everything's sounding nice and crisp. We've got a limiter on there, and that's set to the highest ceiling possible, so 0 dB. That's basically anything above 0 will get compressed down. But as you can see, and even when we kick into a loud part of the track, there's a tiny bit of limiting going on down on the meter there, but not very much. So you might want to pull that back slightly. The issue becomes when you start to crank the gains. So this could be your channel gains or the overall volume coming out of the mixer and going into a hardware compressor limiter. Then actually we get a lot of compression. Now this is all digital, so you're going to get nasty distortion for a start, but also it's going to reduce the actual dynamics of your track. So we've got there the bass is reducing it down on this loud section, but when you go into a quiet section, like a breakdown, that's going to sound a lot louder by comparison. So that's how you can tell if there is a limiter in the system and you're hitting it and you can't see that limiter. You can tell it's there because your breakdowns and your quiet passages will be much louder than the actual louder passages of your music, because everything is getting squashed down together. Also as well, in a lot of systems, it's an overall full frequency compressor. You're not dealing with multi-band compression, so the bass causing the compressor to kick in will also reduce the volume of the mid and the treble. So overall everything might sound a bit quieter, and it'll certainly sound more squashed. And if you're dealing with a hardware compressor like this Cloud one, these are really popular in the UK, this one, if you hammer it too hard for long enough, it will just basically reduce the gain of the system overall. So you're actually going to be running at a quieter level than if you just turn down your levels to begin with in the first place. You'll also find a lot of your other hardware and software you're playing with has limiters built in now as well. So Serato DJ, for example, has a limiter. The DJI 900 Nexus has a limiter built in as well. But the more limiters you hit in the chain, the more squashed, the more compressed your music is going to sound, and the worse it's going to sound. So the third and final rule, and really this is the only one that actually counts because all the other rules are kind of secondary to this one, and that is listen to the sound system. You've got to listen to what your audience are experiencing, and that means turn off your monitors because they're normally on a completely, these days they're active monitors, completely different thing. So turn them down, listen to what's coming out the speakers, take your headphones off, listen to what's coming out the speakers. If you can, get out onto the dance floor, go and stand in the middle of the dance floor, at the back of the room, next to the stacks. It might be you've got a sound engineer who you're working with on the night, in which case you're lucky, but that's not usually the case for most working DJs. You just turn up and you've got to manage that system yourself. So you need to understand what the audience are hearing. It's so important. It might well be, in fact, that running at a nice healthy level on the output on the mixer is too much. You might be hitting a limiter in the system that you can't see, you don't even know is there. So listen for those telltale signs of the pumping sort of sound, or of your breakdowns being really loud and all the impact going from your drops, that kind of thing. Make sure you're listening out for those signs, and just, listen to the system and understand it, because if you can do that, you're going to A, give your audience the best experience possible, and B, you're going to represent the music that you play in the best possible light. And as a DJ, really those are your only two jobs that you've got to do. So there we go. Thank you for watching today. Please make sure you subscribe for all our future tips, tricks and product reviews. We've got the Zone 43C for Serato up next week, so look out for that one. I'll see you soon.